So this man right here, Steve Scalise, might be your next Speaker of the House. But is he going to make it? Let's talk about it. How's everybody doing? My name is Anthony Brian Logan, and today we got to talk about House reps in the GOP holding a secret vote to determine who their next Speaker of the House nominee is going to be. And the person who won was Steve Scalise. Now, before we get into who Steve Scalise is and why he is the pick, let's get into the actual breakdown on the vote, shall we? So this was internal GOP. This was not the floor vote, so he has not become Speaker of the House yet. But the internal GOP vote, 113 votes for Steve Scalise, 99 for Jim Jordan, and 8 voted present. Now, I don't know who voted for who, because remember, I think there were 8 people who voted Kevin McCarthy out. I'm not quite sure if it's the same 8 who have voted present here, but different story, I digress. The whole point is that Steve Scalise has won the internal GOP House vote to become the nominee to become the Speaker, but there still must be a floor vote. Now, in a floor vote, you got to get the majority of the House to agree on the Speaker. Currently, the GOP has a majority in the House, but it's a very slim margin. Put it to you this way. You need 217 to confirm, and there are currently 221 Republicans in the House. So I'm no mathematician and part of my math skills here, but if just 5 GOP members say we don't want Steve Scalise, then he's not going to be able to get through. And it could be a chaotic scene, just like what happened with Kevin McCarthy when there were, 14 or 15 rounds of voting to finally confirm him, only to have him get kicked out of the House 9 months later by just 8 people. Just 8 people said, okay, nah, you're not going to be the guy, get out. So the next guy up is Steve Scalise. Now, before we get into anything else, in my personal opinion, let's get into a quick video about Mr. Scalise. It's not going to be anything other than just a little bit of a refresher. Then we're going to get into an article. And if you want to see anything that I place on the screen, link as always will be in the description. If you're on IG, visit the link in the bio, go to the corresponding article on the website. But without further ado, let's go ahead and roll it.
Let's get to pre-COVID levels on spending, because we can't just keep writing blank checks. You know, this idea all week you're hearing from Democrats, all they want to talk about is how much more money to spend, as if there's money sitting in a piggy bank.
That sounds good, of course. Absolutely. And then I'm going to just read some of this down here. It says, Steve Scalise is a Republican serving Louisiana's 1st Congressional District. As a House Majority Leader, Scalise is now the top-ranking House Republican. So he has some clout, obviously. Scalise entered the race on October the 4th to become the next Speaker. He pitched himself as a candidate for unity. Now remember, back in 2017, I covered the story when it happened. It was really crazy. The person, it might have been the Bernie supporter, I can't remember who this guy was, but this guy had a list of people he wanted to shoot, of Republicans he wanted to shoot, and he went to the congressional baseball game and he shot Steve Scalise. Now, Steve Scalise acted heroically during that particular time. It was really crazy. But yeah, that is where a lot of us may remember Steve Scalise from being shot at the congressional baseball game. He underwent treatment and returned to Congress 4 months later. Now, one thing you might not know about Steve Scalise is that he has cancer. Like, I think he actively has cancer right now, because in 2023, it says the congressman was diagnosed with cancer, but said it was very treatable. So he has blood cancer. I don't know if it's leukemia or whatever it is. If you guys know about the specific kind of cancer, like the name of it, y'all let me know in the comments. But I do know that he has blood cancer, or he announced that he was fighting it. I'm not quite sure if he's in remission, if it's gone away, or what's happening with his cancer status. Now, people see him as more conservative than Kevin McCarthy. And Matt Gaetz apparently has approved of him.
The stages of grief, I think, are in progress right now with some of my colleagues. I think there was a stage of denial, and I've certainly experienced a good amount of their anger.
Now, remember, Matt Gaetz is the person who led the charge to get Kevin McCarthy out. So if he is endorsing, I guess you would say, Steve Scalise, then I guess that's a good sign for those who want to see Kevin McCarthy out. However, I don't think Steve Scalise is one of the 8 people who voted Kevin McCarthy out. You see, that's one thing that I want people to understand is that the majority of Republicans, look, you have 221 Republicans in the House. Only 8 voted to get Kevin McCarthy out. Only 8 out of 221. So that means the remainder of Republicans in the House, 212 of them wanted Kevin McCarthy to remain.
And now we appear to be headed toward bargaining. I think the world of Steve Scalise. I think he'd make a phenomenal speaker.
So, of course, he's not for climate change, all that kind of good stuff. Let me just skim through this. Second Amendment advocate and was given an A+ rating by the NRA, and et cetera, so on and so forth. So a conservative person, by all means, a conservative person, but will he be able to unify the party and get to 217? Again, there's only 221 Republicans in the House, just 221, and you need 217. So all Democrats are going to vote against Scalise, all of them. They're going to be unified because they were unified against Kevin McCarthy. They're going to be all unified against Steve Scalise. That means you got to have basically every Republican to say yes to Scalise. If just 5 of them say no, then it's not going to happen until they can get through the rounds of voting and figure out who it's going to be. And it looks like it might be kind of an uphill battle because they already have had some division. Look, if the internal voting was kind of split down the middle, almost, as far as those who voted for Scalise and those who did not vote for Scalise, you had 113 votes for Scalise, 99 for Jim Jordan, and 8 for just voting present. So in my mind, that's against Steve Scalise. So 99, 8, 107, 113, you're right within that 5-person margin. It's going to be tough. It'll be very tough. All right. Now, there's an article here we can kind of skim through right quick. And of course, I will link to it in the box, but you see what's going on. Republicans nominate Steve Scalise to be House Speaker and will try to unite before a floor vote. Now, hopefully they can just get on one page before it goes to the floor, because we don't want to see a repeat of the 14, 15, 16 rounds that it took to get McCarthy in there, only, again, to have him get ousted just 9 months later. We don't want to have that. That's really embarrassing. You can't govern that way. And as of right now, as I'm speaking, there is nobody at the gavel to pass anything through. So we're going to have gridlock if we can't get this whole thing done. Okay. Now, I'm just kind of skimming through this right here. He's battling blood cancer, got shot at the baseball game we've mentioned before. Republicans who have been stalemated after McCarthy's historic removal last week will seek to assemble their narrow House majority around Scalise and what is certain to be a close vote of the full House. Democrats are set to oppose the Republican nominee, of course. A floor vote of the whole House could come as soon as Wednesday afternoon. So this is Wednesday at about 2 p.m. So by the time you see this, there may have already been a vote, or there may be a vote that is kind of ongoing, or it may not start this afternoon. It may start tomorrow, but they're going to try to get this thing done pretty quickly, and hopefully it does happen pretty quickly. Now, as I close, I want to say this. I hope we get somebody in there, somebody. I mean, honestly, Kevin McCarthy would have been just fine. I'm not saying I'm the biggest Kevin McCarthy fan, but I don't really see what more Steve Scalise can do, or even a Jim Jordan could do. I don't see what more they could do than Kevin McCarthy did. Again, you have a very slim majority in the House. You don't have the Senate and you don't have the White House. So People expect Kevin McCarthy or Steve Scalise or Jim Jordan or Byron Donalds or whoever to be like the president, when in reality, Joe Biden's the president. So you have very limited powers. Hopefully we can get something done and move forward with what we can, because what we don't want is a vacant gavel. We don't need to have that. We need to keep going forward and stop all this petty infighting that won't really resolve anything of consequence. But I think I'll leave that right there for now. And what say you? What's your take on Steve Scalise potentially becoming the next Speaker of the House? Do you like Steve Scalise? Do you not like him? Will he be able to do more than Kevin McCarthy? Is he more conservative than Kevin McCarthy? Whatever your thoughts are, let me know in the comments below. You guys know where I'm at. It really doesn't matter, to be totally honest, who's the Speaker of the House, as long as a Republican, as long as they are in the Republican Party, because at this moment, we don't have the Senate, we don't have the White House, and our majority is very slim. Look, if we want to really impose our will, we got to have more power. You can't come from a place of weakness. They have 2/3 of the top three. And in our majority, it's slim. So we got to come from a place of majority. We got to have more of the House and the Senate, at least the House and the Senate, if not the White House. But if we have all three, then we can start to, but if we have a slim majority House, no Senate, no White House, it's going to be rough. And it doesn't really matter who the Speaker of the House is in that circumstance. But whatever your thoughts are, please let me know in the comments below. And that's all I got to say for this video. If you like what you heard, please comment, rate, share, and subscribe. Peace.